Hey, what's going on, guys? I have something interesting to review for you. You guys know I like coffee. I've done different videos on coffee before. And recently I wanted to try a new espresso machine. And ended up getting the Rock espresso machine from Whole Latte Love. And it's really, really cool. You're going to see a review on that in the future. But I was also in need of a regular coffee grinder for my house. I have tons and tons of coffee beans, the whole beans. I like grinding them fresh. I can do it in the Gaja espresso machine that I have, but that's for the machine. If I want to use the grinds for like my Keurig or something like that, or if I want to make fresh grinds for just regular drip coffee, I couldn't do so. So I needed to get a regular grinder, but in thinking of the idea of the Rock espresso machine, being able to travel around, I want to be able to use it if I kind of go camping or if I go up to my folks' house. I can bring it with me. It's super cool, super simple. That's for a whole different video. But the problem that I had was I had no way of grinding, fresh coffee beans out and about with that machine. All right, of course I can pre-grind it and stuff, but it takes away from the whole idea of having, completely fresh brewed, or fresh pulled shot espresso. So I wanted to basically take the whole beans, grind them up fresh, and use those fresh ground beans in the espresso machine. So I was kind of in the market and looking for a manual mill. And I saw this on Whole Latte Love's website. This is the Hario brand ceramic burr mill. All right, basically you have a canister, which is like a mason jar. All right, and then the lid for the mason jar has a little, grinding mill built into it. It's really cool. I'm showing you this in reverse because I have the parts inside. And the reason I'm starting the video out like this is because I want to show you this is how I'm going to store it. When I want to bring it somewhere, this is the best way I can store this without anything getting inside, without parts hanging off so nothing gets broken or bent out of shape, particularly that handle for grinding. Now, ideally, what I would do is I would take a bag of fresh beans and put it inside this canister. I have plenty of room in there to store the beans inside. So this is one simple package I can take with me wherever I go and grind fresh coffee. The obvious advantage of this is that it doesn't take any power. It's completely manually done. You don't have to worry about having electric anywhere, so you can use this to grind fresh coffee beans for camping. You can use it for any kind of outdoor purpose, even if you're going down to, I don't know, the park or something, and you want to make some coffee. Sometimes they have grills down there. You can heat up some water on there and make a fresh cup of coffee. Just really cool, something different. So basically, I'm going to open this up, show you all the parts, put it together, and talk about it a little bit. All right, so you see it as a glass, jar for all intent and purposes. It's kind of like a mason jar. There's a latch on the side, so you lift the latch. All right, and then this whole top piece opens up. Now there's a cork here. For my purposes, this came with this cork. For my purposes of storing everything inside, I didn't want this to be exposed. So that cork plugs up that hole, nothing gets in, nothing gets out. You especially don't want to lose any of the small pieces that are in here. All right, so when you're ready to use it, just pop the cork out. This, like I said, did come with this. All right, remove all the pieces. Here is our actual ceramic burr. This is going to be, it's also adjustable, this particular one. I'm going to show you that. This will grind anything from, coarse to really fine, so I can use the fine for my espresso stuff and really coarse for regular coffee or like a French press. All right, we have our handle. Nice wood, everything is metal. All right, we have a washer. We have kind of a gear thing, which I'll show you. We have another piece here. And then we have our little nut for the top. All right, so really, really easy to put together. I'll show you that in just a moment. You see there's a big rubber seal here. All right, so when you push, it naturally lands like this. You see how much space there is. That's basically, you're pushing this down, you're creating a perfect seal. It's a real thick rubber seal, which is removable if you want for cleaning purposes. But very, very good because it's completely airtight. If you wanted to store your coffee, let's say you grind it fresh and you wanted to store it in here, no air is gonna get to it, all right? Also on the bottom here, this is removable. In fact, this whole thing, let me show you this. This whole thing comes apart for cleaning. All right, basically pop your latch, lift this open. I like that the entire lid easily comes off. If you push this down, it comes right off. Then you can remove this piece here, remove the front part of the latch, just like so, and take off the rubber boot or bottom. So now we literally just have our glass jar You could throw this, you know, in the sink and wash it up really good before and after each use if you wanted to. The rubber bottom is necessary. It does keep it nice and sturdy. Wherever you're doing this, you want it on a nice flat surface. You don't want it moving around, right? So having the rubber on the bottom really helps with that, because basically you're holding it still and then using the handle to grind that, and it's going to be moving around a little bit. If you didn't have this, it would make it a lot more difficult to do so. So put the rubber back on, put our latch thing back on here. All right. And then our lid. The one thing I'm going to say is I don't know if they make an aftermarket piece. What I would really like to see is I'd like to see a separate lid come with this kit. Of course it doesn't, but I'd like to see another lid that was literally just a lid without the mill. So basically you can use this over top of anything else. And that's another thing to note too. If you wanted to grind directly into another container, you can. If I wanted to, let's say I took all the beans out of this and I wanted to grind directly in here, I can literally just put this over top and grind right into my storage container. All right, it's not going to be as stable because it's not attached to it, it's just sitting on it, but if you hold it here steady, you could do so. All right, just a little note there. All right, I'm gonna show you how to put this back together. You may not want to store the stuff inside, but as far as for cleaning purposes, you should know how it you know, comes apart and goes back together. Very, very straightforward, very simple. Basically, you want to take our burr, and you can see this is where the coffee is ground, all right, on here, and in coordinates with the piece on the inside. All right, so first thing I want to do is put this little plastic washer piece on and put this through the lid, just like so. I'm going to kind of hold it there and close this. All right, the next piece you want to put on is going to be this right here. This is basically how we're adjusting our grinds. Now, the further down that this is, the smaller the grind is going to be, because this literally lifts up that burr, you know, against the other one. As we raise this, okay, when we rotate this, let me give you a good shot of this. As we raise this, it's going to have more play, more give. You can see the light coming through there. Okay, it's further away. You have teeth here and teeth here, and when they're really close, obviously it's going to grind really fine. The further you pull them away, the bigger the grinds are going to be. All right, so keep that in mind. This is something you want to play with. There's tons and tons of different, you know, adjustments. From all the way down tight to the top here is a pretty good margin. You can get pretty coarse or really, really fine grinds. So to start off for this demo, I'm going to do the fine because I'm using this more for espresso than I am for like drip coffee or for a French press. So basically I bring it all the way down till it's actually tight, and I back it off about 1.5 turns, okay? Now once you're done with that, this piece right here goes down over the screw, and then these go in between the teeth here. All right, it only goes one way because it's a little rectangle there. And this has to correspond with those teeth. It's gonna drop down, it's gonna fall into that. What this does is ensures that your handle is moving this whole thing and not just spinning, you know, that piece. All right, handle goes on top, only goes on one way. And then of course this nut keeps the handle on. All right, so screw that down nice and tight. And now we have our little mill, all right? Just a quick note, this is sold and made for grinding coffee beans, but it is versatile. You can grind anything. In fact, what I like to do in the future is maybe use this to, you know, crack some fresh peppercorn. If I want to use it for cooking, it's just easier. I mean, I prefer to crack it or crush it right over the meal fresh, but you can certainly do that. You can use this for all kinds of things. But anyway, take some fresh beans, pour some beans in the cup here. Just using some Illy coffee right now. All right, holds quite a bit of beans in there. Something to note is it comes with this piece here. I personally don't use this. This goes on top, and the purpose of this is to keep the beans from flying out. So when you're rotating this and grinding, they don't fly all over the place. I don't like it, but I'll show you. When I'm using it, it tends to pop up a little bit. Even though, you know, when you're not moving it, it kind of fits into place perfectly. But as you're turning this around, it pops up, all right? It's not that big of a deal, but I personally just don't use it. All right, I haven't had any issues so far in using this, and I've used it quite a bit now. The beans don't really pop up, but you could choose to use it or don't use it. And basically what we're doing is just rotating this. Now as I'm rotating it around, all the the grinds are dropping into our storage jar. You can see them in there. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to check this real quick. Take a peek in there. Seems pretty fine. Put this top back on. I'm gonna adjust this just a little bit tighter to make sure that I have a nice fine grind. So lift this piece up, and again, turn it just to tighten that. All right, put the piece back down, handle back on, and this nut. So you want to do just a little test run to kind of get a feel for, you know, how high or low and what the beans are going to look like. So now I'm going to have the finest grind possible with this. Now it takes a lot of elbow grease, let's say. It is manual. It's a very old-fashioned way of grinding coffee. What's nice is that you don't have to rely on any kind of electricity to do this. Now keep in mind too, the finer the grind, the longer it's going to take to go through the same amount of beans. In other words, I might have 20 rotations for really coarse, and with the same amount of coffee, it might be 100 rotations, but they're really fine. So keep grinding for a little bit here, and then we're going to take a look at the grinds. All right, I'm going to put this on for a second. So I'm going to tilt this, take a peek in here. All right, so let me just take a little bit out here so we can inspect it. Now, obviously, you wouldn't do that. You would just grind it till it's empty. But I want to take a little peek here to show you this. So this is really the fine grinds. All right, this would be good for your espresso needs. It grinds very fine. It's not quite a complete powder. It's not going to get it as fine as, say, you know, some of the more expensive, you know, electric machines. But it gets totally fine enough for, you know, making espresso. All right, so I emptied the jar. I want to show you how to adjust this and get a more coarse grind for regular coffee. All right, so take our burr, make sure that little plastic washer's on there. Put it back up through here and hold it on top. All right. Put this piece back on here. All right, the more you go, in other words, the more play you have, the coarser the grind is going to be. I want this to be somewhere in between. You can kind of look in there and see the daylight coming through. And this is something you have to kind of play with to get a feel for it. You will sacrifice some beans when you first get this thing. I know I have. I used some crappy coffee bean, well, not crappy, but my least favorite coffee bean, let's say, to practice. And I probably went through maybe half a jar before I really was able to fine tune and figure out where it is that I want it to be for either grinding really fine you know, coffee grinds for espresso or a more coarse one for coffee. So let's leave it right here and see what kind of a grind we get. Put this back on here. Make sure this is nice and tight. All right, so more beans go in. Do a little bit here. See how many beans we have in there. You can see this obviously will hold a lot more. If you do bring it up to the top, you're probably going to want to use this thing, but I kind of go a little at a time, look at it, reassess where I'm at, and I can always add more. Now with a somewhat coarser grinds, it's not going to take as long to grind the same amount of beans. It does take some elbow grease, and that rubber bottom really does help. All right, because as you're turning this, if it snags on a bean really gets caught in there. It might jerk around a little bit, so get a good grip on that. And we're almost done. All right, felt the pressure really release there, so that's basically the last of it. So open this up, take a look in there. It's a coarser ground bean. This is still a little bit fine for some. I mean, it's totally fine for most coffee makers. And, you know, you throw it in a filter, you're good to go. But you might want a little bit coarser for like something like a French press, so it doesn't fall through any of the holes in the filter. So I'm gonna do this one more time. Adjust this to be even more coarse. Now in this case, you can see it's pretty coarse. I mean, this is what you'd probably use, like I said, in a you know, French press or something along those lines. But there's tons of different levels. Like I said, it's something you really have to play with to fine tune and then get a feel for where it's at, and you make adjustments. So it's the biggest tip I can give you is if you get this, don't grind a bunch of coffee, then look at it. You know what I mean? Just put a couple beans in there, do a grind, and see where it's at. This way you're not wasting coffee. If you're trying to use an espresso machine and it's the grinds are too fat, it's not going to work properly. You don't want to waste them. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I think this is really cool. They're $63.33 on Whole Latte Love's website. It is one of the cheapest places you're going to find it if you want this particular kind. They do have cheaper ones. Coffee grinders, manual ones, could be as expensive as $300–400, and of course, you know, the automatic ones can go up to $5,000. It's crazy. People really get into coffee. If you're a coffee enthusiast, or if you're going to be doing this all the time, it really is worth it. This is something that you can use when your power goes out. Again, along the lines of prepping and being prepared for all kinds of situations. You know, if you want a fresh cup of coffee. I mean, obviously you don't have to grind it fresh all the time, but if you like your coffee and you're into your coffee and you want that good, you know, really special flavor, it comes from grinding your beans fresh and making a cup of coffee right after you grind them. It really makes the world of a difference. You know, if you have a quick cup of coffee before work just to get you going, that's one thing. But when you like coffee and it's almost like a hobby, and you really can tell the difference between good coffee and bad coffee, and, you know, freshly ground coffee as opposed to stale coffee from 4 months ago that's been sitting on the shelf somewhere. If you're that much into it, it's definitely worth getting. If you just drink coffee for the caffeine and you really don't care, and you know, you put tons of you know, cream and sugar in it, you might not know the difference. All right, so it's not for everyone. But anyway, as far as the size, it's bigger than I thought. I thought it would be a little bit smaller when I got it. I mean, just like when I do knife reviews or gear reviews, you can read specs on it, and then you actually get it and you go, wow, you know, it's bigger than I thought, or that's smaller than I thought. The dimensions on this, 4.4 inches by 7.4 inches by 4.3 inches. All right, weighs just under 2 pounds according to my scale, but I found that everything fits in there with the beans as long as I don't use this piece, which I'm not using much anyway, so not a problem. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Take care.